Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, White House senior advisor Jared Kushner has warned that the decades-old Israeli-Palestinian conflict is getting more and more unsustainable. It noted that the so-called deal of the century would provide a solid political starting point for a viable solution. The Gaza-based Iranian-Palestinian-proxy Islamic Jihad vowed to strike major cities across Israel if the latter would dare assassinate members of its organization. Secretary General of the Iranian-proxy Hezbollah Hassan Nasrallah vowed to annihilate all Israeli troops that would enter southern Lebanon amid growing concerns of a summer conflict between the two neighboring countries. White House senior advisor Jared Kushner has warned that the decades-old Israeli-Palestinian conflict is getting more and more unsustainable, a reality that demands concrete and realistic breakthroughs. During a Q&A session at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, the top presidential aide insisted that despite the lack of trust between Israelis and Palestinians, the so-called deal of the century will put forward a solution that Washington believes is a good starting point for the political issues.
What we will be able to put together is a solution that we believe is a good starting point for the political issues, and then a outline for what economically can be done to help these people start living a better life.
When asked about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's election pledge to assert Israeli sovereignty over parts of Judea and Samaria, two out of the three regions that comprise the so-called West Bank, Kushner voiced hope that both the Israelis and the Palestinians would first assess the proposed initiative before any unilateral steps are made.
So I have not discussed this with the Prime Minister, and I do hope that what will happen is as he forms his government, we've been giving him space to do that. I do imagine that once there is a government formed, we'll start engaging on this process and we'll have a discussion. And I do hope that what we're doing, I said I hope both sides will take a real look at it, the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, before any unilateral steps are made. And I hope that they'll look at it and assess it and see if they do believe that this is a pathway for a better future.
On the matter of Jerusalem, Trump's senior advisor emphasized that the ancient city was and will always be the capital of the state of Israel, and by acknowledging this reality, the White House simply made a decision to recognize truth.
I think that when we made the decision to recognize Jerusalem, the president asked, will this make your job easier or harder? And the answer I gave him was, I think short term it's probably harder because people will, be more reactive and emotional. And they're not used to, a president that is keeping his word, taking tough decisions, and doing what he thinks is right in that regard. And so I said, this is going to be a different thing. I said, but long term, I think it helps because what we need to start doing is just recognizing truths. And I think that when we recognize Jerusalem, that is a truth. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and that would be part of any final agreement anyway. And I think.
Jared Kushner was also asked about the U.S. administration's policy vis-a-vis Iran, to which Trump's senior advisor responded by stressing that so long as the Islamic Republic continues to aggressively look outward, its coffers will be depleted and the pressure will continue to mount.
If you think about what the president's done to get out of the JCPOA, the Iran deal, I think we've tried to do everything we can to make sure that all of the different areas where they're being aggressive, whether it's Yemen, whether it's Syria, whether it's with Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, to make sure that we limit their resources so that they're not able to export terror in the way that they have done. And the administration's been very clear with Iran is that we want to be able to work with Iran, but we want them to not be looking outward.
Meanwhile, on Israel's southern frontier, the Gaza-based Iranian-Palestinian-proxy Islamic Jihad vowed to strike major cities across Israel if the latter would dare assassinate members of its organization. The threat came after the IDF published a picture of the terror group's commander of the northern district of the Gaza Strip, who is accused by the Israeli military of instructing the launch of a rocket on Monday that exploded off the coast of a southern Israeli city. While the IDF did not elaborate on its possible response, the rare publication of the terrorist's image raised concerns of a possible threat of an imminent assassination attempt. Responding to the Israeli threat, Islamic Jihad Secretary General Ziad al-Nakhala voiced his organization's resolve to confront Israel if it would follow through on targeted assassinations. He said in a televised statement that any harm to the resistance, regardless of their organizational positions, and targeting them through organized and overnight assassinations, will face a response with all of our might. We will target large cities in return for this, regardless of any preceding or future understandings, according to Nakhala's warning. With regard to the deal of the century, al-Nakhala accused the Trump administration of attempting to bribe the Palestinian people in exchange for what he termed as the land of Palestine. The Islamic Jihad leader exclaimed that the Palestinians will reject any Western attempt to bring the Palestinians to terms with the reality of a Jewish state, and underlined that the existence of the resistance is tied to the very existence of Israel. He said that as long as Israel exists, resistance will continue. In related news, Hamas and Islamic Jihad officials traveled to Cairo for a meeting with Egyptian intelligence officials. According to a Hamas source, the Gaza ruling organization is seeking Egyptian assurances to preserve the terms of the truce with Israel and demand that Jerusalem implement a second phase to the arrangement, which includes the transfer of funds to the Gaza Strip, earmarked for Palestinian families in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Now to Israel's northern neighbor Lebanon, where Secretary General of the Iranian-proxy Hezbollah Hassan Nasrallah vowed to annihilate all Israeli troops that would enter Lebanon during the course of a future conflict. In a televised address to his followers in Beirut, Nasrallah claimed that his militiamen would make an example of Israel's armed forces should Jerusalem decide to invade.
Israel wants a war? Let it go to war. The Israeli units and brigades that dare to enter southern Lebanon will be annihilated and destroyed on live television before the whole world.
The Shiite Lebanese leader insisted that Israel has lost its qualitative military edge. He claimed that while Lebanon's southern neighbor had a clear aerial advantage, the era in which the Air Force decides the outcome of battle has come to an end.
The Israelis say the home front is not ready. Any theoretical Israeli war needs a ground operation to achieve its desired goal. The era in which the Air Force decides the battle is over.
The rhetoric voiced by the Lebanese leader comes amid growing concerns over a possible summer conflict with Israel. Jerusalem has also voiced concerns of its own over the growing influence of its arch-rival, the Islamic Republic of Iran, along Israel's northern frontier. That said, Israeli officials refused to respond to TV7's request for comment regarding the threats voiced by the Hezbollah leader. Now to Tehran, where Iranian President Hassan Rouhani vowed to continue exporting oil despite the tightening of sanctions that are imposed against his country by the United States. In a speech at a Tehran university that was broadcast live on state television, Rouhani confessed that some countries had capitulated to U.S. pressure, but hinted that other countries continue with business as usual.
با قدرت صادر کنیم در برابر اونها. البته متاسفانه برخی از کشورها در برابر فشار آمریکا عقب نشینی میکنند.
On the 22nd of May, the United States demanded from 8 countries that received waivers on its international sanctions to end all energy-related purchases from Iran by May 1st, due to Washington's efforts to ratchet up the economic pressure on the Ayatollah regime. The sanctions aim at curbing Iran's aggressive behavior across the world, including in Europe, where it stands accused of conducting a covert assassination campaign against Iranian opposition figures. Thank you for watching us. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hassan. Have Erev Tov and Shabbat Shalom. We will see you again on Monday at the same time.